It's time for Western New York Athletics High School Football Weekly, hosted by Frank Wolf from WesternNewYorkAthletics.com and Dick Gallagher from WGRZ Channel 2 High School Sports. Football Weekly is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency in Kenmore, Scroy Financial in West Seneca, Cipriano Realtors, CiprianoRealtors.com, St. Francis High School, CSA Prep Start, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, New York, Canisius High School. The show is produced by 300 Level Media, LLC.
Hello, welcome to WNYAthletics.com High School Football Weekly. I'm Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics, and I am joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ Channel 2 High School Sports. Dick, pleasure to have you on today. How are you?
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Well, you know why you're here. We're talking high school football, and we're just a few days away from the beginning of another season, and I have no idea where to start. There's been so many changes with coaches, with teams joining a different class this year. Where do you start?
Well, I think that when you look at it, you take Class A, Double A, and what they had was 11 teams last year. Now they have 8. And if you then take what was the highlight of that move, Jamestown going from Double A to A. And Jamestown actually won a couple of state championships in Class A. So it'll be interesting to see how they do, go into a lower class, although it's not going to be lower competitive-wise. And then if you look at the A's, you're looking at 18 teams, 3 leagues, and the biggest addition there is Western New York Maritime Health Sciences. You look at the B's, 20 teams, 3 leagues, and the biggest move, I think, was Iroquois coming from an A to a B. Then the C had quite a few moves into Class C, mainly because of Class C. Mainly because of Class D. A lot of Class D teams wind up in Class C South right now, and Class D North is they each have 7 teams. And then Class D, which was a surprise to everyone, was they only have 4 teams compared to in the past of 10 or 8 teams. So it'll be interesting to see it.
Do you think that's going to have more of an impact on the D League because they only have 4 teams down there? You play each other twice. How can you – is that going to make those teams stronger, playing less competition? Or is that a disservice to them down in D, you think?
I don't think so. When you have to play teams twice. But then when you consider there's also a new coach, Justin Ham, with Kurt Fisher going to Chautauqua Lake. And who knows what implications that'll have. But just the 4 teams. But the other side part of that is there's 17 teams that have merged in Section 6, has the most of any section in the state. And then if you look at 30 teams right now are playing 8-man football with 3 coming from Section 3. So the times are changing, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, not just necessarily this year, but the next couple of years, particularly with enrollment.
I know that 8-on-8 has made its way into Section 5. It's only a matter of time, I guess, before it's up here in Section 6. And I would imagine some of these teams that are merged will end up with 8-on-8 teams before you know it.
Well, when you look at it, you had 4 city teams that played football for 100 years. They dropped football. You have others that played for a lot of years, and they've merged. And so when you look at how this is going about, I think the state's going to have to take a look at doing a better job. For example, whatever the parameters were for Class D teams, someone should have recognized, hey, that leaves Section 6 with 4 Class D teams. That's not healthy, not going to be productive for the section and the players. And yet we're still stuck now with 4 teams and have to make the best of it.
Right now it's 7 schools in Class D making up 4 teams. And if you go through the Section C class, almost every team has more than 1 school just to get the numbers to have a team. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year and down the road. But it doesn't look good for the number of teams playing 11-man football.
Yeah, and I think that you're right. It's going to take time and just see how it plays out. Kenny Stoll, the chair of the Section 6 committee, and his committee, they do a fantastic job. They're connected with the state. We have 22 state championships from West New York Section 6. So we play good football, and we have 150 or 160 alumni that have played professional football. This year we have 12, and 3 are in the CFL, and 9 are in the NFL. So it just demonstrates the quality of football. The difference is we don't play in a religion area such as Texas or the South, and where they get a lot of publicity and a lot of looks for recognizing the kids. But it doesn't prevent the kids from being able to go on and do well in college and play in the NFL or CFL.
Certainly. A lot of coaching changes. You mentioned one already with Hamp down at Maple Grove, Kurt Fisher at Chautauqua Lake. Any other new coaches into Section 6 at places that kind of jumped out at you?
Well, I think Craig Dana succeeding Gene Tundo is a good move for the Quakers. He's been a long-time assistant coach, and he knows the game and communicates well. And the interesting thing is you had 4 other coaches come back to coaching. Excuse me. We had Eric Jancy, who's come back to North Tonawanda, where he won a state championship and a couple of, a few sectional titles. And you also have Kurt Fisher, as we mentioned. You also have Charlie Comerford, who I think was at Timon for 7 years. He's now head coach at West New York Health Sciences Charter School, and Miston one, and Chuck Tilley, who coached at Eden and Tonawanda, and he's now at Frontier. So it speaks volumes, and the 15 are the most ever in any year that I've been involved as far as new coaches. And right now, 60 to 63% of the head coach, football coaches in Western New York have less than 5 years of experience. That compares 20 years ago when you had the dinosaurs that were there for 20 or 30 years. So it's changing. The game is changing. Generation changes, and it's interesting.
Well, I joke often with head coach Mike Mimiletti from Will North about, I asked him just a few weeks ago, hey, Coach, when you look across the sideline, you don't see Lenny Jankowitz anymore. You're not going to see Gene Tundo. I mean, everybody that you came up with when you started, they're pretty much gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I asked him how much longer he's going to go for, and he said the big thing for him is as long as he can stay in the school, he's going to stay on. This is what he loves to do, and he's been very successful at Will North, and I don't see anybody pushing him out. I don't want to suggest that, but he just said that the biggest thing for him was being able to be in the school, to watch the kids, to get to know the kids, to make sure that they're on track and they're doing the things they're supposed to be doing to stay eligible to be on the field. Yeah. That's a big thing.
And some of the kids some of the coaches want to be coaches if they're teaching in the school, because it gives them that closeness with the players. It also allows them to monitor the players, making sure that they're doing what they need to do. Now what you have is just an unknown in a lot of ways. You have some people from the outside coaching. They don't have that connection with the kids. They have to earn it. And just like players get better with repetitions, coaches get better with repetitions, decisions, experience. So it takes a while. So when you have the majority coaching or being head coach under 5 years, it takes a while to get that experience. And so when you're going against Wally Hucknall or Gene Tundo or Kurt Fisher, whatever, you have to, be able to not only challenge them, but be consistent and being able to beat them.
Yeah. And Jerry Smith is another one, St. Francis, who's been well over 25 years, I believe.
He's 30.
He's 30 years now?
Yeah, he's a dinosaur.
What's he coming up on? He's coming up not on 300 wins, 285. He's closer. Do you know where he is?
His total games
coached.
Yeah. I think he's near 300. I think he needs 5 for 300.
Okay.
I think he has 151 or 53 wins. So he's done a fantastic job. John Sabetta was an outstanding assistant coach for him for years. But the beat goes on. They got a good team this year.
Yeah.
They'll be competitive.
Yeah. A couple other notable coaching changes at Hutch Tech. Tony Trelizio is back from Riverside, North Tonawanda. He had some stops there, but he's at Hutch Tech. McKinley is waiting to officially name a new head coach. We know that Brian Hillary stepped down just a few weeks ago. Mika Harris is filling in on the interim basis. We're waiting for an official announcement as to who the new coach there will be. So I know, speaking with Aubrey, a number of candidates stepped up, and they're going through the process right now. So it'll be interesting to see who does get that job. Jeremy Zimmer takes over for Sweet Home this year. He was an assistant with Rich Lowe last year, and he's been on Coach Fowler's staff forever. Mark Dorenzo at Depew is another brand new coach. So a lot of new changes. Dan Russell at Lakeshore. You mentioned Kurt Fisher. We mentioned Charlie Comerford. It's Maritime Charter School conjoined with Health Sciences. Rick Weber at Eden, North Carolina. And you also mentioned Chuck Tilley at Frontier. So a lot of coaching changes in Western New York this high school football season. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the teams that moved up a class and down a class in our next segment on WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly.
Hi, I'm Paul Wolf, local independent insurance agent for over 15 years. We represent over 30 insurance companies to try to find the best coverage and the best price for you. We're family owned and operated. We specialize in auto, home, and commercial insurance.
Call the Paul Wolf Agency today at 835-9653 or stop in at 2686 Elmwood Avenue in Kenmore.
The next time your insurance rates go up,
call the
Welcome back to segment number 2 of WNYathletics.com High School Football Weekly. I'm joined by Dick Gallagher. This is Frank Wolf of WNY Athletics. I want to thank some of our sponsors of today's show: Scroy Financial out in West Seneca, Cipriano Realtors of Tonawanda, Logistics Plus of Kenmore, New York, PrepStar, Paul Wolf Insurance Agency, St. Francis and Canisius High Schools. Thank you very much for sponsoring today's show. Dick, in this segment, I want to talk to you about the different divisions and who you like, and we can discuss who you think might have a shot at the playoffs or even beyond. But we'll start with Double A.
I think in Class Double A, you have 5 teams that will be competing for playoff berths. You have Bennett, Clarence, Lancaster, Orchard Park, and Williamsville North. Then if you look in the A's, A1, I think Jamestown and West Seneca West jump out. An A2, you look at Grand Island, Sweet Home, maybe North Tonawanda. And A3, you have South Park, Star Point, Williamsville South, and West Seneca East. That's a tough league there. Then in the B's, B1, you have Cheektowaga, Maryville. B2, Albion and Olean. B3, Dunkirk and Burgard. And on the C's, you have for C North, Cleveland Hill and Silver Creek. On C South, you have Southwestern, Faulkner and Cassadaga Valley. And in the D's, you have Maple Grove and Clymer, Sherman, Panama, CSP. And then in the Monsignor Martin, you have 3 teams in the league: St. Joseph's, Canisius, St. Francis. I think the Marauders and the Crusaders, will be the 2 best in that league, although Franny's will be very competitive. And then in the B League, Cardinal O'Hara and Timon should be the most competitive.
Yeah. I know St. Mary's was a little tight on numbers this year. They weren't as strong as they had been, so I know that that's a concern there, depth issues. Timon, though, what a difference in a year with Joey Licata there. I mean, they seem to have their numbers into the low to mid-30s there, right. So I expect them to be a little bit more competitive than they were. But O'Hara, they've got that big lineman Boyd. They got a pretty good quarterback and Masters and a few others playmakers there. So I expect O'Hara to have a pretty strong year in that in the B division of the Monsignor Martin. And then I do like Franny's this year, and I think they'll be more competitive. St. Joe's, I don't know how much they lose with Casey Kelly at quarterback with the new kid, who I happen to really like. But I think their other skilled positions we're gonna have to wait and see.
But I think that Mika in the pronunciation, but Brown, I watched him in a scrimmage against Clarence, and he lit it up. He's an outstanding athlete. He's a dual threat, and I think that as long as he stays healthy, that team's going to be very, very competitive. Then if you look at their line is one of the biggest and best in Western New York. You have 2 kids that have already received scholarships. Tyler Dovey, 6'5", 300 pounds. He's going to UB. Cole Gambino, 6'2", 280. He's the pancake man. And then you have Will McDonald, I believe it's McDougal McDonald, but he's 6'6", 300. You take a look at that size, then all they need is to get a couple of running backs. You only need a little space, and you're off to the races. So I think that St. Joe's is going to be very competitive. Canisius, with some of the transfers that they have in, plus the kids coming back, are going to be competitive.
Yeah, Canisius just seems to reload year after year. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there in Monsignor Martin. In Class D, I had an opportunity to get down to Southwestern over the weekend, and I saw CSP, and they handled themselves pretty good. I know it was just a scrimmage, but they handled themselves pretty good there. So I think that's a 2-horse race with Maple Grove and CSP early out. We'll have to wait and see. But I like Maple Grove. They have a lot of returning players, and I know the new coach isn't just somebody they just scraped up. Coach Hanf has been around. He played collegiately, so he knows what he's doing. It'll take a little bit of time, I think, for the adjustment period. But I'm expecting to see Maple Grove and CSP down in D. Now, C North, I'm really looking forward to Week 2. I don't want to jump to the gun here, but I'm looking at that Cleve Hill Wilson battle in Week 2. I know Cleve Hill has handled Wilson over the years pretty well, pretty easily. But Wilson, with that quarterback-receiver combination, I think that's going to be a shootout to some degree. The only question is whether or not Wilson can stop that running attack of Cleve Hill, which nobody really seems to be able to do.
I think when you look at it, Cleveland Hill has 3 of the best running backs in Western New York, if not New York State, with Aaron Whaler, Javon Thomas, and Mario Grant. And then if you look at the advantage that Cleveland Hill has, is that they'll just wear you down. And Wilson has outstanding talent, particularly with the passing combination of Stephen Frex, excuse me, and Marcel Wilson. They'll light it up. But you just wonder if they're going to have the depth to be able to stay with the toughness and physicality of the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, like Wilson. I mean, they'll be able to score quickly. They can score quickly, but if they're not on the field to score, and Cleve Hill is controlling the ball, it's going to be a tough one for them. But I'm interested in seeing that game. I know Silver Creek is going to be a tough game as well. They play Week 1, Wilson and Silver Creek.
Right.
So I would like to get to that game if I can, but I think I'm committed at Will North, Will East. But that's one game that I really wanted to get to this week. I believe Francis might be heading up there for WNY Athletics. In Class C, Southwestern, obviously very good with Cole Snyder, and they have a pretty impressive passing attack with Mike Card there, the receiver. I like Chautauqua Lake. From what I'm hearing, they're going to be a pretty imposing team. I know it's their first year up in C South, but I'm interested to see how good they're going to be. Randolph's got a pretty good line going too, don't they, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, Bernard, he's 6'4", 285. At that level, they're going to be running by him. But Brent Brown, when you take a look at what his record is, in particular, they won 3 state championships, and he just was off the chart. And they might have had even another state championship, except a couple of kids made some wrong decisions. They'd be terminated from the team, and that really hurt them big time in the playoffs. But that league is going to be very competitive.
Yeah,
plus
without a doubt.
Castaneda Valley, Faulkner, they have 2 outstanding players in Robbie Penhollow and Crabtree, and that's what makes high school football pure and fun, because you got to come to play, and it's not about what the prognosticators are.
Still got to play the games.
Saying you got to play the game.
And B1 in particular, I'm interested to see how Iroquois does in this new B1. They're with Maryville and Cheektowaga, 2 exceptionally talented teams. They've got Connolly Cup guys already littered on those rosters. I'm interested to see what Iroquois can do, and even Pioneer. If they can work on Cheektowaga Maryville at all, I would imagine it's going to come down to Cheektowaga Maryville. But I think Pioneer and Iroquois can make things interesting.
I think the edge goes to Pioneer. Primarily, they have an outstanding player, all West New York candidate, and Mike Riegerman. 122 tackles last year, 11 touchdowns he scored. This year, he's gone to a couple of camps. He's got a 96 GPA. He benches over 300. And the interesting thing with Pioneer is they have 7 players that bench from 275 to 315. Plus, the quarterback is solid. You get Riegerman, and if they can just get some backs that will light it up, they're going to be very competitive.
Yeah.
And when you look at the top 3 finishers, top 3 second place, then 2 of the third, this is where when Pioneer play Iroquois in the beginning of the season, that game will be huge because of the one that loses is going to be pretty much out of the playoff hunt, given Cheektowaga and Maryville.
Sure. Yeah, it's got major implications, and I believe that's a week 2 matchup as well. So someone I'm sure from WNY Athletics will be out covering that game. Olean's always strong. Albion's always strong. Depew with the new coach, but they still have an experienced quarterback. But I think they need some help depth-wise in the skill positions. Lackawanna lost a lot of talent last year. They were really good, sneaking into the playoffs as well. Dunkirk, you can't ever count out Coach Sartori up there. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of weapons to choose from this year.
If you look at the last 4 years, they've been under the radar screen.
Always.
But now, when you look at what Mike Sartori and the staff have been able to do, it's been amazing. And they are physical. And then a couple of years ago, when they upset Cheektowaga and wound up going to the semifinals of the state, I think they have talent, and they are also a very physical team.
And they have speed, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which helps. They're going to need speed, too. So we'll see what happens in B. I know in A3, that's the division right there, where a lot of you got Charlie Comerford and his Maritime team coming in, but I like the job that Star Point's doing with Aaron Chase. They're going to be extremely tough. Craig Krasansky, you can't ever count his team. That Jameel Jones is the real deal. Exceptional football player. West Seneca East. You can't count out Coach Marino. His guys are going to be tough. But then you got Tim Delaney, South Park, Sparks. And they've got 3 or 4 guys on there that are returning that are, all Western New York type players. So that A3 is going to be extremely tough. At least 1, possibly 2 teams in that division alone is going to get the short end of the stick. In A2, I don't know what to make out of McKinley yet this year, although they have Fields coming back, the running back. He's a heck of a football player. North Tonawanda with Jancy, that defense will be extremely tough. But they've got a lot of work to do in terms of depth. Will East, they made the playoffs last year. They got a couple of good players coming back. You can't count them out, but then you got it. Sweet Home's going to be tough. Grand Island's always tough. Cam Cianco at quarterback, although they did lose a good receiver and a nice running back there. And then A1, Jamestown's down in A1 now. Is Savan Van Sickle, Drew Boggs, some very good football players in Jamestown. West Seneca West. I don't know what's going on there with the quarterback position just yet. I know that there's some talk that the kid from Sweet Home transferred in who may get that starting quarterback position in a couple of weeks. Kenmore West, how good are they going to be? Another year playing at Class A ball. Will that finally catch up to them where they can compete with teams that are on their level in terms of numbers? We'll have to see. They got young quarterback Zach Boyd starting. I believe he's just a sophomore. It's Jerry Boyce's son. So that'll be interesting to see how they do there. And then AA, Lancaster lost a lot of talent. I don't know how you can make up for a kid like Andreessen, and then Damiani, Manzel, Hersey, Giordano. I mean, those are 5 players that they all could have really won the Connolly Cup last year. They were all exceptional football players, but they're all gone.
Yeah.
So depth's going to be a bit of an issue for Lancaster this year. Orchard Park, brand new coach coming in, Craig Dana, although he's not unfamiliar with those players. He knows them well. Got a nice quarterback in Jack Sharp. That Pataki kid's a heck of a linebacker. So they're going to have a pretty good team. And then, Will North, they've got everybody coming back except for the 2 running backs. But Coach Mammalani said, I've got 2 more for you. And he goes, I like their IQ. They're very strong mentally and physical. They're going to be a physical team. That Scott Becht, it could be the Joe Andreessen of 2017. Hate to put that kind of pressure on that kid, but he's a big, strong kid.
Right, and Scott Hopkins is good, but the North lost 2 players, one to an injury. He was at a camp at Edinburgh. He's got an ACL. He's out. He was a big kid. And also, I'm blocking on the name, but a kid transferred to St. Joe's. He's 6', junior, 190 pounds. That takes away, but they still have a lot of depth. And I think every game's going to count in that league. It'll be interesting. Orchard Park, I think, is not under the radar screen. They lost last year. Yeah. They had a 4-5 record. It was one of the first records for years that they've lost more games than they won. But they'll be, I think, very, very competitive. Their line is going to be much better, and they're going to surprise people, I think, with Craig Dana handling the offense right now. And I think that Bennett has got that DJ Perry, the transfer from St. Mary's, who's only a junior, good running back. And they also have Justin Campbell, who is the cousin of Malik Campbell. And in those Campbell genes, regardless of whether it's Richie or whatever sport, those kids come to play. They'll be very physical. So I think that, particularly after the week 1 and Saturday at maybe at 5 o'clock, we'll be able to hold our breath, take a breath, and then look and then say, hey, this is a surprise, this is an upset, etc.
You mentioned Orchard Park, and what I wanted to mention in particular with that team there, last year they opened up against McKinley, and I thought that was a bit of an upset. McKinley beat Orchard Park in week 1. But they got better as the season went on. I know they still had a losing record, but they only lost to Will North last year by a field goal at the end of the game.
But the key in that is Jack Sharp, who's got better every game.
Every week.
And he was only a sophomore. And Bataki also was an outstanding linebacker. So if you look at those 2 kids that are going to be the players, that are going to be the leaders, then you look at what, for example, you have Jordan Prince coming on, playing for the first time, being in varsity. You have 6'6" tight end. And I think that when you look at the total background of Quaker football, they come to win, they come to play, and they didn't like what happened last year. And they've been working out all year, either, with a weightlifting, a 7-on-7. So, again, you have 8 teams, and you're going to have 4 of them make the playoffs. And we mentioned before the show that it could be Lancaster and Orchard Park playing on week 8 and on week 9, depending on the seedings. They could have a rematch the next week.
I definitely think that Bennett team is also much improved. For some reason, Bennett just, they keep on moving up a class, and they always get better in that second year of being in that class. They seem to come out. And you mentioned Justin Campbell earlier. I'll tell you, I was at the Lancaster Bennett game last year, week 1, and I know Lancaster handled them easily, but there's really only one play that stood out in my mind, and that was Campbell getting into the Lancaster backfield, and he popped Andrew Hersey and caused a fumble. And that's like one of the only plays I remember of that game. But that kid is a tenacious football player. He's got an eye for the ball, and I know he's worked out extremely hard this offseason, so I'm expecting big things out of Bennett, especially with Jedi Perry coming in. This Bennett team, I'd watch out for, and in true Steve McDuffie fashion, first game of the year, he goes right up against one of the top teams in all of Western New York and St. Joe's. Last year he starts with Lancaster. Give me the best out of the gate. No different this year, St. Joe's. So, he's got a lot of guts, and I expect big things from Bennett this year.
And Bennett scrimmaged Pittsburgh from Rochester, which was interesting, so we'll see. But Stevie does a good job, and he's got his players, and it'll the one thing we know from the city schools, they all play physical.
Absolutely. So that's our second segment. We'll come back in just a few moments to close out the show. WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. Frank Wolf with Dick Gallagher.
The North End Bar and Grill in Kenmore is the perfect place for friends to get together, enjoy a great menu that includes all the local favorites like wings, roast beef on weck, and the best Friday fish fry in town. Serving daily specials like spaghetti and meatballs, flavorful hamburgers and barbecued ribs, and enjoy 12 beers on tap, including IPAs. The North End Bar and Grill, located at 2692 Elmwood Avenue near Girard. To order takeout or to reserve a table, give us a call at 877-9000 or visit us on the web at northendbarandgrill.com.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly with Dick Gallagher. I am Frank Wolf. Our final segment of the show today. Again, let's thank our sponsors, Scroy Financial out in West Seneca, Cipriano Realtors, Logistics Plus in Kenmore, New York, Prep Star, the Wolf Insurance Agency, St. Francis and Canisius High Schools. Thank you very much for sponsoring today's show. We're here, week one. A lot of good games. I know there's not a lot of non-leaguers, but is there any in particular that you got circled and we may see yet?
Well, a few of them. I haven't made up my mind where I'm going to be, but Cleveland Hill at Maryville, two outstanding teams, a lot of quality players. They're going to be playing Friday. And then St. Joe's and Bennett, that's going to be an interesting game and just see how that plays out. And Star Point and Grand Island last year, Grand Island went and upset Star Point.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're going to be looking for some vindication, but both teams have excellent quarterbacks in Star Point, Aaron Chase and Cam Cianco for Grand Island. But those are the ones that jump out. West Seneca East also travels to Jamestown. That'll be an interesting game.
Yeah. WNY Athletics, we've got 7 or 8 games on the docket for different guys to go out to. Me personally, I'll be at Williamsville North versus Williamsville East. A bit of a rivalry there. I know it's a non-leaguer, but I'm interested to see how, if at all, Will East has improved from last year. I know they made the playoffs, and they've got a nice quarterback returning there. There's a Shiflett on the team, so you know that they're going to be a tough team to play against no matter what. I'm interested to see if Will East got any better. And then Will North, a team that a lot of people are thinking may have a shot at getting back to New Era Field this year. So I'll be at that game. I'm going to keep my eyes on that Jamestown game, West Seneca East at Jamestown. I'm going to keep my eyes on that one. We will have a guy at Sweet Home, West Seneca West. That'll be an interesting one. Of course, West Seneca West knocked out the Panthers last year in the playoffs. Springville at Maple Grove. We got a new coach in Maple Grove, so that'll be kind of interesting to see how a new coach does. Iroquois and Looport, I don't know if that's going to be a quality game or not out of the gate, but Loopport's got that big lineman. Joe Powers, always interesting to see how he does. Iroquois quarterback has like a 1400 SAT.
Well,
So-
you don't have to worry about repeating that any information to him because he's going to retain it.
Exactly.
And when you have a quarterback who's also very smart, that helps big time as far as being able to expand your offensive and defensive schemes.
On Saturday, a couple of big games. Clarence at Kenmore West, an old Class AA matchup. They'll meet up at Crosby Field. Charlie Comerford back in football, Western New York High School football. His Maritime Chargers, they waste no time getting after Canisius in week one, so that'll be an interesting one. And North Tonawanda, Eric Jancy, back on the sidelines again as a head coach. His Lumberjacks are heading up to Niagara Wheatfield to take on the Falcons up there. That'll be a pretty good game. Also up in Niagara County, South Park and Niagara Falls. So a lot of pretty good games. Nice matchups for week one in Section 6 in Monsignor Martin. A lot of the Catholic school teams are playing teams from the Rochester area or Erie. So not a lot going on there in terms of league games in the Monsignor Martin, but it'll be an interesting week. I'm interested to see how things play out. We should know a lot more about these teams after the first week. Real quick, who do you think would be the surprise team? Out of all these football teams from Class AA all the way down to D, is there one team in particular that you're interested in seeing how they do?
The question mark, I think Niagara Wheatfield has got a lot of kids returning, and plus they have some quality players. Then in Jordan Parks, outstanding athlete. I know he had some health issues and injury issues, so he's got to be really at 100% to be able for them to fulfill their mission of being able to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, interesting to watch him. And I think that the one team that you mentioned is Bennett. You know, when you look at it, you look at the quality of the coaching, you look at the quality, the athleticism of the part of the team, the physicality, and when you look at Justin Campbell and you look at the Jay Perry, and you look at a lot of the other quality players that they have, you know, plus Class AA. And I think you were right too earlier when you said that you know Bennett, the second year that they were in a classification. Well, when you look at it, I think they were in 4 different classifications in 4 years or 5 years, and they held their own. And you know, you can't underestimate them. But I think that the one that I want to see is on A3 when you look at Williamsville South and West Seneca East. You know, those 4 coaches are outstanding. The 4 teams, not taking any away from the other 2 teams that are in that league, but I just think those 4 will just have what it takes to be able to move up to the next level.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Week 1 is here. Thank you very much for joining us again. For WNY Athletics, I'm Frank Wolf, along with Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. We'll see you next week on WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly.